بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, we begin our class, our lesson in Aqaid Nasafiyyah, Al-Imam Nasafi, by praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity for us to continue. And we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make these lessons a reason where our sins are forgiven, our prayers are answered. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always bless us with iman and taqwa, and protect us from all difficulties, trials and tribulations in dunya and akhirah. Ameen. Ya Rabbal Alameen. So inshallah ta'ala, firstly we will enter into our book, and we'll do a bit of revision based on what we mentioned in our last lesson. So basically, we are in the beginning of the Aqaid of Al-Imam Nasafi, and again we are looking at the commentary of Al-Imam Taftazani, and as what I mentioned many times, the commentary of Al-Imam Taftazani is considered to be one of the best commentaries, and it is concise in comparison to other commentaries of Aqaid Nasafiyyah. So there are important things that were mentioned by Al-Imam Taftazani, which you might not be able to spot in the text of Aqaid Nasafiyyah. So it is important at times that we go back to the commentary of Al-Imam Taftazani, so that inshallah ta'ala we will understand the subject in a more profound manner. So this is the part that we were last week, we were speaking about the meaning of truth. Because Al-Imam Nasafi began by saying qala ahlul haqqi, qala ahlul haqq, the people of the truth. The people of the truth said, with regards to who are these people of the truth, I mentioned as what we will find in the Hawashi, in the other explanations of some other scholars when they mention about who actually are the ahlul haqq. The answer to it is they are the Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah. Ahlul Sunnati wal Jama'ah, the people who are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whom the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam spoke in some hadith, whether directly or indirectly, those who followed the footsteps of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Sahaba and the Tabi'in, and the Ummah that were guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah bless us with tawfiq and hidayah. So let me summarize what we mentioned, what you call it last week, I went through all of this. This is the first paragraph that is mentioned here, and this is the words of Al-Imam Taftazani. So I think I also explained for those who have the book, the PDF that I post in the WhatsApp group. The one in bracket is the words of Al-Imam Nasafi, whereas you find below is the words of Al-Imam Taftazani. So, to summarize, I will not go through again all these in details of all the words that were mentioned, but in detail Al-Imam Taftazani he speaks about the meaning of al-haq. What is the meaning of al-haq? So he gave a definition. Huwa al-hukmul mutabiqu lil-waqi'. So it is a ruling that corresponds to the reality. A ruling that corresponds to the reality. So this is the translation, and we use the word correspond. And I gave examples. Of a pen. I gave an example of a cup. So when we say something that corresponds to the reality, it is called as al-haq. So the ruling that was spoken is called sidq. So as-sidq and al-haq is what Al-Imam Taftazani mentioned, and they carry the same meaning. But he said that usually the word sidq refers to speech. When you say something of truth, this saying of truth is called a sidq, because it corresponds to the reality. As for the reality is something that is established. So anything that corresponds to the reality, either we say it is the words that were mentioned, or the ruling that were given is sidq, and we say the whole concept is the truth. So these are so many of the things that were mentioned by Al-Imam Taftazani. He mentioned so many differences between what is a sidq, what is difference between sidq and al-haq. After he gave the definition of mutabaqah. You see, in mantiq we have this dalalatul mutabaqah. So this also sometimes it is important for us to understand. So when in mantiq for example in logic when you say dalalatul mutabaqah, meaning you are defining the complete reality of a particular thing that you are defining. So for example, later he will give an example in the case of human beings, for example, dalalatul mutabaqa, we say human beings is al-hayawanu naatiq, al-hayawan an-naatiq. So this speaks about the definition of human being in reality. So inshallah after this we go on into that, because that's the exact example that he gave after this. But what is important here, the first thing we have to understand, this is what you call it in philosophy, they call it an epistemology. Epistemology is learning the concept of knowledge and how to define truth and so on and so forth. So we find Al-Imam Nasafi began Aqaid Nasafiyyah by speaking about epistemology, because this is the understanding that we need to have in order for us to come to the correct understanding of realities. Now, so now we go on to the next part. And in last week, before we enter into the next part, last week I gave some slides pertaining to understanding the modernist concept of the enlightenment vision, and how they divide the pre-modern and modern and postmodern. So we have these three stages in Western Western thought or Western culture, where they began in the 1100s, for example, during the Crusade, and after the Crusade, Christianity basically dominates much of Europe, especially the Roman and the Catholic Church. So the modernists will say, for example, these are the pre-modern period, where people depend on the concept of God and the concept of supernatural being. This is how the modernists interpret. And then after that came the age of reason and the age of enlightenment, where people began to realize that it is not important anymore to rely on supernaturalism, as what they call it. Human beings have the ability to define what is truth for themselves by using reason, and concepts of truth. So the modernists reject the existence of God, for example, many of them, although some of them actually believe in the existence of God, but they go back to the importance of using reason to establish truth and so on and so forth. And then we have come into this era which is called the post modernist era, where you have people who are rejecting all these realities or all these truths. This is where we are coming actually. So last week, why I spoke about this history and some of these concepts that were present in their tradition, because we will find for example Al-Imam Taftazani, after he spoke about the concept of truth, he will go on to speak about the sophistry, the sophists or sophistry, where people are rejecting truths. So in a way I want to connect what is mentioned by Al-Imam Taftazani, and how are we able to understand the era that we are living today. So it is important for us to understand some history, so that we can understand what is happening in the times that we are living, and so that we can understand when our scholars mention that there are people who reject realities, who are the people who reject realities, and how they reject realities, and who are they actually, and what they have done, and what are the effects of their philosophy on the Western world, and also in the situation that we are living today. So that is why last week basically I gave a bit of an introduction. Inshallah, when we have when we have time, inshallah, I will go back into that those slides again to run through again, inshallah, so that we can understand the subject better. But for now, inshallah, what I will do we just read the commentary of Al-Imam Taftazani, the extension of what he mentioned about the reality of things. And we find, for example, Al-Imam Nasafi, after he mentioned قال أهل الحق, then he mentioned حقائق الأشياء ثابتة. حقائق الأشياء ثابتة. And again, Al-Imam Nasafi is trying to tell us that the reality of things are affirmed, are established. خلافا للسفسطائية, later he will mention about that, about those who reject the realities. And inshallah in the upcoming lesson I will give more about the historical what you call it, facts pertaining to what happened in the West, and as what I mentioned how it evolves to what it is now. It is now today. Then it is easy for us to understand why our scholars emphasize on certain things, like what is done by both our Imam of An-Nasafi and Imam Taftazani. طيب. So now he mentioned حقائق الأشياء ثابتة. We have the word حقائق, and we have the word الاشياء and the word ثابتة. So in Arabic and in the Arabic grammar, we say حقائق is a mubtada, whereas ثابتة is the khabar. And usually in the Arabic grammar, when you have mubtada and khabar, the jumla is called jumlah mufida. So there is a thing in the Arabic language where our scholars for example they mention that the sentence has to be a sentence that gives benefit, a sentence that gives benefit. If you construct a sentence just having the mubtada, that is the subject, without the predicate that explains the subject, it is a shortcoming. It is not considered to be jumla mufida. So we have this word حقائق الأشياء ثابتة. So he mentioned that the reality of al-ashya, the reality of things, ثابتة, are established and affirmed. Then he explains, Al-Imam Taftazani explains what is meant by Al-Imam Nasafi when he speaks about the realities of things. So what is the meaning of realities of things, and what is the meaning of thabit, something that is established. So he gave an example, and before that he said حقيقة الشيء. What is the meaning of حقيقة الشيء, the reality of a particular, the reality of a particular thing. And he said حقيقة الشيء وماىيته. So these are two words that carry the same meaning. So we have حقيقة and ماىية. حقيقة and ماىية. حقيقة is a reality, ماىية is a reality. So ماىية comes from the word ماىية, it goes back to the essence of things, goes back to the essence. ماىية, usually in the Arabic language we say ماىية, it is the essence. حقيقة الشيء speaks about the essence and the reality of things. So what is حقيقة الشيء وماىيته? He said ما به الشيء هو. The reality of a particular thing, the reality of the particular thing or its essence is the description of its reality. It's a description of its reality. What is an example? Now from here we can understand what he's speaking about. So he said كالحيوان الناطق للإنسان. So for example, if a person asks you what is the definition of human being, what is the meaning of human being, how we define the reality of human beings. So we have to go back to the definition. In mantiq we call it al-had. So when we go back into the definition, and based on al-had, al-had it speaks about the essence of things. The definition based on their essence. So we differentiate between the essence of things and the accidents of things. So he gave an example. For example, al-hayawan. If we were to define for example human beings as al-hayawan الضاحك, al-hayawan الضاحك. Al-hayawan meaning it is a living being. In the Arabic language al-hayawan, living being, although in Malay you say hayawan is an animal, but the actual meaning of hayawan comes from the word al-haya. Al-haya meaning life. So when you say al-hayawan, it is something that has life, something that has life. So al-hayawan yani is a universal any word because it consists any of many things any that are alive. It consists any of human beings, it consists any of animals, it consists any of what you call it, all other any things any that are alive. So it carries any a universal aspect any of the genus. We say any is a genus and it speaks any about the essence any of the thing any that we are describing. Whereas الناطق yani is what any we call it as al-fasl, the thing any that differentiate between human beings any and other living beings. So when we say al-hayawan, it consists of many things. It consists any of human beings, it consists of animals. But what is any the different thing factor in terms any of essence? Again, we are speaking about in terms of essence, not accidents. In terms any of the essence, what is the thing any that differentiate any between human beings and animals? So our scholars any what you call it, they mention the thing any that differentiate any human being and animals, it is an-nutq. So in the Arabic language, the meaning any of an-nutq, it can have two meaning. One is speaking, from the word nataqa yantiqu. That's what Allah mentioned in the Quran, وَمَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَى. The Prophet ﷺ did not speak any based on his desire. The other meaning of nataqa yani fakkara, yani mufakkir. So the meaning of mufakkir and basically and has the capacity to think, has the capacity to think. So usually in books of logic, it is translated as the intellectual being, the intellectual, and the word intellectual, and it has the capacity to think. And this is the thing I find in some books they mention instead of saying al-hayawanu natiq, instead of we saying the intellectual being, you find in certain books and it say that the talking being or talking any animal. Now this is not correct. This is not correct. You will find in the translation for those any who have the book any with you, you find, for example, what did he say? He said talking animal. He translated hayawan natiq as talking animal. This is not correct. Yani the word any an-natiq, it means mufakkir. So for those any who have any the book, for those any what you call it, just any take note. The meaning any of natiq any here goes back any to the ability any to think, not any the ability any to speak. Clear, inshallah. So we should not any make any this. We should not any make any this mistake. So we have to go back any to the Arabic language and in order for us any to ascertain any the meaning. Likewise, any in last week any when I speak about mutabaqa, about how any we understand any the truth. This is again in the Arabic language and we call it dalalatul mutabaqa. So when we translate any we use any the word any correspond. But what is important any is that we have any to understand certain any terminologies, and especially when we read any books in the Arabic language, we have any to understand those terminologies in the Arabic language, yani in the language any of the mutakallimin, of the scholars any of kalam, because scholars any of kalam any has certain terminologies any that they use which is different any than the scholars of fiqh any, for example. So when we read any books in a certain field, when you've come across any certain any terminologies, then we have any to interpret any those terminologies any based on the scholars any of that field understood as such. So he gave me this example, كالحيوان الناطق للإنسان. So when you say what is any insan, so insan is الحيوان الناطق, الحيوان الناطق. So الحيوان is jins, الناطق is fasl. And in mantiq we spoke any about defining how any we define what is any the correct way any of defining. So the best any type of definition is the definition any based any on al-had, and the definition any based any on al-had is a definition any based any on the essence any of the thing any that is defined, on the essence any of the thing any that is defined. There is another type any of definition in mantiq any, for example, we study the definition any based any on rasm. Definition based on rasm. So definition based on rasm, it is a lower category any of definition in comparison to definition any of al-had, because any definition of rasm speaks any about al-jins and al-khas, al-jins and al-khas. So when we say what is an insan, definition based on rasm is al-insan huwa al-hayawanu الضاحك. So this is what any al-Imam Taftazani any mentioned here, the difference any between التعريف بالحد and تعريف يعني بالرسم. So this is what you call it a discussion in logic and in reality, in منطق. So what is the difference between الحيوان ناطق and الحيوان ضاحك? الحيوان ناطق and it speaks about the definition based on the essence of human beings, whereas الحيوان الضاحك and it speaks about the accidents of the human being. So there is a difference between speaking about the essence of things and the accidents of things, because the accidents of things at times occur, at times it does not occur, at times occur, but at times it does not occur. But when we speak about the essence of things, and it is something that is established in the thing that is defined. So since Al-Imam Nasafiyyah is speaking about حقيقة الشيء, so we have to define the thing that we are speaking based on their essences, to come to the understanding the reality of the thing that we are defining. Now, so this again it is a discussion in the knowledge of mantiq. So that is why knowledge of mantiq ya jama'ah, it is very, very important when we study ilmul kalam, that we equip ourselves with learning this knowledge of al mantiq. In English we call it knowledge of logic, just in case if someone first time hear the word al mantiq. Naam. And then he mentioned بخلاف مثل الضاحك والكاتب, بخلاف مثل الضاحك والكاتب. So it is different with regards to the word الضاحك والكاتب. And if you say, for example, الإنسان هو الحيوان الضاحك, this is definition based on a rasam. You are speaking about laughing, the laughing being, the laughing being. So laughter is an accident. Laughter is an accident. It is not an essence. It is not any part of the essence of human being. So for example, human being, when we look at ourselves, we are what you call it, we consist of essence and accidents, correct or not? We consist of essence and accidents. My body is an essence. My body is an essence. The color of my skin is an accident. The color of my skin is an accident. What you call it, laughter is an accident. So what is the meaning of accident? An accident is something that cannot exist on its own in the outside, in reality. It is something that cannot exist on its own. What is the meaning in something that cannot exist on its own? So for example, if I ask the question, can you remove any laughter from yourself? That it is, and you show it to me, for example, this is laughter. It cannot be done, because it is like an attribute. So it is not an essence. Clear, inshallah? It is not an entity, or it is not an essence, but it is an accident that subsists within an entity. An accident that subsists within an entity. The color of my skin is an accident. I cannot remove the color of my skin. It is something that subsists in my essence. So this is the meaning of accident. This is the meaning of al-'arid. In Arabic we call it 'arid. Here also the author later on we use the word al-'arid. So that is why it's important to understand some of these terminologies. So remember this, when we speak about accidents, it is something that does not subsist in its own, but it does not exist within by itself, but it subsists within the entity. So there is no such thing that you have an accident without an entity. There's no such thing you have an accident without an essence. The height of your body is an accident. The height of your body. Can the height of your body be in existence if your body is not in existence? And it cannot. Because it subsists together with your body. So بخلاف مثل الضاحك, الضاحك والكاتب, laughter, talking, all these are accidents. Al-katib, writing. So these are accidents. So these are different from the essence of things. So you cannot define a good definition of one. The good definition is the definition based on essence, and not definition based on accident because any accident is something any that cannot any exist any by its own, but it subsists any within the essences. So when you speak about realities, you have any to define the essence any, not any the accidents. Then any he mentioned mimma yumkinu tasawwur al-insani bidunihi. Because why any when we speak about the reality of human beings, and for example we have any to define any based any on essence and on accident, because the accident any is something that can do without, in order any for us any to define. We can do without any what you call it human beings any, for example human beings any at times any laugh, at times any he does not any laugh. At times any he laugh, and at times any he does not. So this is something any that is any subjective. So that is why when we speak any about definitions, any we always any speak any about definition based any on the essence. وقد يقال إنما به الشيء هو باعتبار تحققه حقيقة. Then any he mentioned that some scholars any they differentiate any between what is حقيقة, what is ىوية, and what is ماىية. Three things. If you look here, حقيقة, then he mentioned ىوية and ماىية. So firstly he mentioned basically any all these any are the same. All these any are taraduf, yataradaf. Yani these are basically any words, different words any, but carry any the same meaning. But there are opinions any that say that there are some any differences. What are these differences between حقيقة and what you call it ىوية and ماىية? So yani he said إما ما به شيء هو باعتبار تحققه حقيقة. When comes any to its realities in its existence, what you call it, it is something that is called حقيقة. وباعتبار تشخصه ىوية. So they say the difference any between حقيقة and ىوية. حقيقة yani is the reality any of a particular thing, whether it is something that is in existence or not in existence. Whereas ىوية is pertaining any to something that is in existence any in the outside any world, existence any in reality. This difference any between حقيقة and ىوية. So حقيقة any refers any to a particular thing, whether it is in existence any now or not any in existence, but it is something any that is established any as in reality. But when comes any to ىوية, it is something any that is only in existence. ومع قطع النظر عن ذلك ماىية. So when comes any to ماىية, the third one, it is more general. It is not what you call it. It is a reality which does not speak any about whether something any is in existence or something any is not any in existence. So ماىية any speaks any about reality any itself any in the general sense, whereas حقيقة and ىوية yani speaks any about realities any in existence any we call it in ىوية, and حقيقة yani likewise any it is reality any based any in the general any meaning, that is the reality any of things. So these are any some any differences any between the three what you call it the three words. So now any we look any a bit we look any at the translation any for a while. I mentioned any there is some any mistake, so let us any look any what is mentioned here. So this is any basically the translation of what any we went through any earlier. So he said the حقيقة any of a thing as شيء, and its ماىية, the essence, are the factors any that make a thing what it is, meaning any the definition any in terms any of its reality and in terms any of its essence. And then he mentioned it is like the application of the term talking animal. This is where earlier I mentioned that you have any to change the better any translation any is the intellectual being. So you write this down, and it is the intellectual any being, and usually any we don't use any the word any animal. Aristotle any use this, Socrates use this, any the Greek any philosophers, when they describe any human beings any they say human beings any is a rational animal. They use any the word any rational or intellectual. Why any they say any animal, any basically the word any hayawan, something any that is living. So the similarity any between human beings and animals, that we are beings. In reality, we are alive. correct or not? And we are alive. But the thing that differentiate us, differentiate human beings from the rest of living beings, is that we have the capacity to think, the capacity to think. So this is called the intellectual being. So this is going to be a better translation than what is mentioned here. And then he said, the one who loves the writer, which are things which is impossible to imagine a person, which is possible to imagine a person without. Because when we speak about essences, we are not really concerned about the accidents, because accidents are subjective, and sometimes occur, sometimes it does not occur. ىوية. The rest are basically only there's one more thing, because he said those qualities are simply contingent. This is another word that I feel that there is a better translation to it. We say this is the Arabic word of عوارض. So maybe you change, you say because those qualities are simply accidents, and instead of contingents, we say accidents, because the word contingent, even human beings is a contingent being. Correct? Not the essence of human beings is contingent. So the correct translation is simply here is simply accidents. Simply accidents. ىوية. And then Al-Imam Taftazani goes on to speak about some linguistic things that is related to the word حقائق الأشياء ثابتة. And what you see here, mashallah, is just the linguistic explanation about the word حقائق الأشياء ثابتة. So he mentioned, you just need to check I didn't miss anything. Afwana, there are certain things that I okay, this is the thing that we have not covered. Then Al-Imam Taftazani mentioned والشيء عندنا. والشيء عندنا. What is the meaning of الشيء? Because Al-Imam Nasafiyyah mentioned حقائق الأشياء. حقائق الأشياء. حقائق is the plural of حقيقة. Al-Ashya is the plural of shay. So what is the meaning of shay? So he said shay, there are a few words that can describe shay, and alfazun mutaradifa. These are words that carry the same meanings. So shay, it means al-mawjud, and the first meaning is we use the word mawjud, and something that is in existence. As-thubut, likewise the meaning of thubut, something that is in existence. Likewise for the word تحقق, al-wujud, al-kawn. So all this basically is the same meaning. So this is the important thing that we have to understand. When we speak about حقيقة الشيء, we are speaking about its existence. We are speaking about its existence, the reality of its existence. طيب. So he said that the meaning is badihi تصور. It is knowledge that is based on something that is easy for us to understand. Badihi meaning knowledge that you do not require to ponder. The opposite is nadari. So we have daruri and nadari. So badihi is an example of knowledge that is daruri, whereas nadari it is knowledge that requires ponderance. طيب. Now when we go on, Al-Imam Taftazani in the next part he mentioned that if some people ask a question, some people ask a question, so as though Al-Imam Taftazani now he is going to answer a question that can be posed by some people when they ponder upon the word حقائق الأشياء ثابتة. So in terms of the linguistic meaning, in terms of the grammatical analysis, does this sentence mufid, mufid meaning does it gives any benefit, or it does not give benefits grammatically? We are speaking about grammatically, because you see in grammar the khabar must explain the mubtada. But if you have the khabar that carries the same meaning as a mubtada, it does not explain any meaning. It does not explain any meaning. He gave the example of wajibul wujud mawjud. Just like when a person says wajibul wujud mawjud, then the necessary existence is the necessary existence exists. So isn't that goes back to the same thing? When you say something whose existence is necessary wajibul wujud, it must always be in existence. So how come you say wajibul wujud mawjud? Doesn't it what you call it is the same? And when you say wajibul wujud, it is understood as something that is in existence. Then why the word mawjud comes as the khabar, or as the predicate of the subject. So this is quite interesting, as what is mentioned by Al-Imam Taftazani. He said that it carries a meaning. Do not think that it doesn't carry a meaning. Do not think that it is something that what you call it, something that is a repetition, but in reality it is something that is different. So now inshallah ta'ala we will just look at this. Inshallah I will give some explanations, and then after this I will go back into the slide for a while to tell you about what's coming in the upcoming weeks. And because when we go to speak about those who does not believe in realities of things which he will come into, then inshallah as what eventually we go back into our side to speak about the post modernists or post modernism, because this is the phenomenon that is occurring in our age of people who are rejecting realities, as what is mentioned by Al-Imam Nasafi. So that it is important for us to understand their history and how they come into what they are today, and how it affected our life. So now inshallah we just look at what is mentioned here. So he said فَإِنْ قِيلَ, if it is said, so as though someone posed a question. So now he's going to reply. فَالْحُكْمُ بِثُبُوتِ حَقَائِقِ الْأَشْيَاءِ يَكُونُ لَغْوًا بِمَنْزِلَتِنَا بمنزلة قولنا الأمور ثابتة قلنا المراد إما تعقده حقائق الأشياء ونسمي بالأسماء. If some people will say that what you call it, if the meaning of subutul حقائق الأشياء is something that is known, or something that is in existence, then it is the same thing, as though you are saying حقائق الأشياء حقائق الأشياء موجودة. حقائق الأشياء حقائق الأشياء موجودة. So when you say that the reality of things, the meaning of reality is something that what you call it, that exists, that are established, and then you use again the same word ثابتة, which is established, isn't that a contradiction, or isn't that something that explains itself again? So what is the benefit of, as though we are repeating certain things? Because if you say that the meaning of حقيقة is ثابتة, that it is something that is affirmed and something that is established, why again you use the word established? As though you are saying the establishments of realities are established. So if realities are itself by itself is something that is established, why do you need the word established again? So then he explained. He said بمنزل قول الأمور ثابت قلنا المراد. Then he said the meaning is أنما نعتقده حقائق الأشياء ونسميه بالأسماء. So what he's saying is that based on our belief that these realities are established. So when we say realities are established, meaning these realities are established based on our belief, based on our i'tiqad. So this is what he's saying. So based on our belief, that we believe that these realities that are established, based on our realities, and we believe and we affirm that it is something that is established. Because there are people and despite what you call it, looking at the meaning of these realities, they reject the establishment of such realities. So that is why this is the difference between does a person affirm correctly to the establishment of these realities, or a person does not affirm. So this is one, he said minal insani wal farasi was sama'i wal ard umurun mawjudatun fi nafsil amri. Yani when we give any examples, for example of human beings, horses, what you call it, the skies, the earth, we say by itself and it is in existence. By itself and it is in existence. But when we say, for example, human beings and are in existence, I am in existence and you are in existence, and it goes to speak about our belief, that we believe that these things are in existence. Our belief that these things are in existence. So we are not repeating, but basically we are emphasizing and we are affirming. We are affirming to these realities. Kama yuqal. Then he gave the example, wajibul wujud mawjud. That's what I mentioned earlier. Wajibul wujud mawjud. You say the word wajibul wujud is being that is necessary. Being that is necessary, that whose existence is necessary. The definition of wajibul wujud is something that cannot accept non-existence. So if we understand the meaning of wajibul wujud as something that does not accept existence, then why you say mawjud? When the definition itself of wajibul wujud is something that does not accept non-existence. It must be in existence at all times. So what is the implication of using the word mawjud with respect to wajibul wujud? Again, it goes back to the belief that we believe that wajibul wujud is in existence. We believe wajibul wujud, there is such thing as the existence of the necessary being, because there are people who does not believe in the existence of the necessary being. So it is based on our belief. So it is not something that is a repetition, but it is an affirmation based on what we believe, the meaning of that proposition. وَهَذَا الْكَلَامُ مُفِيد. Then he said this sentence is mufid, as in the Arabic grammar nahu. When we say jumlatun mufida, meaning what you call it, a sentence that carries a meaning. So it is not something that is redundant in a sense, but it is a sentence that has its meaning. رُبَّمَا يَحْتَاجُ إِلَى الْبَيَانِ. He mentioned that we are in need to explain it. Al-bayan meaning to explain. وَلَيْسَ مِثْلُ قَوْلِكَ الثَّابِتُ ثَابِتٌ. So it is not the same as saying الثَّابِتُ ثَابِتٌ. Something that is sabit is sabit. And this is a repetition. وَلَا مِثْلَ قَوْلِهِ أَنَا أَبُو النَّجْمِ وَشِعْرِ شِعْرِ. There is a poet, he mentioned in his poem, he said, Ana Abu Najmi wa Shi'ri Shi'ri. He said that I am by the name of Abu Najm, and my poem is my poem. And my poem is my poem. Ala ma la yakhfa. So all this basically it depends on the meaning of certain mentences based on the situations, and also based on the context of the thing that is mentioned, and the meaning behind it. Aywa. So inshallah ta'ala, this what you see now is extension of what we have we have mentioned. He gave some more examples pertaining to the jismul insan, that the body of human beings. So before we stop for our lesson tonight, so inshallah ta'ala we will go I will just show you where we were in the slides. So in the upcoming lessons, we are going to speak about. We are going to speak about again. We go back into the history of pre-modernism, modernism, and post-modernism. So what I'm displaying here is the viewpoint of the modernists, and of course we will go and speak about the Islamic worldview, or the Islamic theology, and based on Islamic theology as we get into the Aqaid of Nasafiyyah. Type just a quick one. So this is what I showed in our last lesson. So So this is the comparison between pre-modernism, as what you see here, pre-modernism, modernism, and post-modernism. So these are so many of the things that occur. And basically in this chart it explains about the changes that occur in this era. So we have the era of what is said as the pre-modernism era. So pre-modernism era is basically the era of the 1100s, the era of Christian Europe, where Christianity dominated much of Europe. So the modernists they look at the pre-modernism as their belief in supernaturalism and in metaphysics. So their concept of supernaturalism basically to believe that is a supernatural being like any God that what you call it, people believe as the ultimate doer of all things. Whereas the modernism they reject this concept of God. So they hold on to reason. They speak about importance of people to remove themselves from religious dogmas and religious inclinations, human beings has to focus on himself. So this comes the what you call philosophy of individualism, where they see human beings as the heroic being that can think from himself and can establish truths by himself without any godly what you call the concept that is inherited by those people of those people of the past. So their view on Christianity and Islam basically is the same. They do not believe in the supernatural world. They do not believe in God. To them it is not logical, or they say that it is by reason and it cannot be attained, that you can understand the reality of the supernatural being. And these are the things that they mention until today. And if you speak to a modernist, they will say that I only believe in the things I see. As for the things I do not see, I cannot believe. All these things you will find inshallah ta'ala al-Imam al-Nasafi will speak about asbabul ilm. There are certain things that we do not see but it is in existence, and all these things are examples inshallah ta'ala it is coming. So in the modernism era, just a quick one, modernism era, people they reject the existence of God, and they turn to reason. And in science they speak about this concept of naturalism, where they believe that nature possess power in the laws of cause and effect, due to the fact that they do not believe godly intervention, and they believe that nature itself has the ability to cause the effects. So this is the age of modernism. And then in the 1950s, just about 60-70 years ago, the Western world came into this thing that is happening until today, which they term it as the post-modernism. I mentioned some things last week. So now this is the thing here. This is how we can relate Aqaid Nasafiyyah and post-modernism, because the post-modernists, they reject the idea of supernaturalism, as what they name it. They reject the idea of God. They reject the idea of reasoning. The idea of reasoning. So they mention that both of this philosophy cannot be true. So they believe is that there is no reality in things. What you call it? There is no reality in things, and that life is meaningless. So this is the philosophy that is adopted by the post-modernists. So they do not when they speak about moral values, also they say that moral values are subjective. There is no truths in what is good and what is bad. So because of that, there are many issues that happen in their society, and also likewise in our society. So inshallah ta'ala, when we speak about the superstar, inshallah I'll go back into this, and then we take a step back into history and find out how this thing evolved. How in the pre-modern era of the Europeans, for example, what happened that caused them to move into the era of modernism, and then the era of postmodernism. I find it important. So inshallah I might take some time to explain some of this historical fact, so that we can understand the ideas that were present when we read Aqaid Nasafiyyah, when the author speaks about the superstai and how they reject reality, and what are the differences amongst them, and what are the schools of thought of the superstai. So we have the La'adriya, we have the Indiya, we have the Inadiya. So inshallah I will take some time to explain, and again I have to go back to the commentary of Imam Taftazani, because Imam Taftazani, if you look in the PDF, mashallah he gave quite a lengthy comment. So we will read Taftazani's Imam Taftazani's commentary, and at the same time also we look at the history. We look at the history, and inshallah I will point out some of the postmodernist ideas. You will find them familiar as so many of the things that is happening today. We pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us with tawfiq and hidayah, and may Allah bless us with the understanding. Ameen ya rabbal alameen. ربنا تقبل دعانا إنك أنت السميع العليم، وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم، واختم بالصالحات أعمالنا وأجرنا الله يا كريم بفضل سبحان ربك بالعزة عما يصفون، سلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.